What would you do if your greatest talent was hidden behind someone else's prejudice? When Andre Santos spoke fluent German to a desperate customer in Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, he had no idea that single moment would expose years of systematic discrimination and ultimately transform not just his life, but an entire industry. This is the true story of how quiet dignity and secret preparation became the most powerful weapons against workplace racism. The black waiter's voice cut through the tension like a knife as he addressed the elderly German woman in her native language. The silence that followed in Manhattan's most expensive restaurant was so profound that even the kitchen noises seemed to pause. Moments before, the German customer had been on the verge of tears, desperately trying to explain her severe seafood allergy to the head waiter, who was growing increasingly impatient, merely shaking his head in frustration. Guten Tag, kann ich Ihnen helfen? Andre Santos said in perfect German to the distressed lady. The transformation on her face was immediately flooding her features as she quickly explained her serious medical condition in rapid German. Finally able to communicate her life-threatening allergy clearly, Andre Santos, 28, never imagined that his 5 years of studying German during the early morning hours at the public library would reveal themselves so publicly at Le Bernardin, where he had worked for 3 years, always relegated to the least desirable tables. He was the only black employee in an establishment that charged $300 per person, where most customers arrived by limousine, and where his presence was merely tolerated to meet the city's diversity requirements. The manager, Mr. Morrison, a 50-year-old man with a grey mustache and a perpetually condescending attitude, watched the scene with narrowed, calculating eyes. He had hired Andre solely to fulfill diversity quotas, always ensuring he served only the back tables, far from the important customers who mattered to the restaurant's reputation. Santos, get back to your section, Morrison growled, approaching with barely contained anger. Leave the VIP customers to those who know how to handle them properly. But Frau Weber, the German lady, gently held Andre's arm. Dieser young man ist ein Engel, she explained to her husband in German, describing how Andre had potentially saved her from a fatal allergic reaction. Her gratitude was evident in every word as she praised his intelligence and linguistic ability. At Table 12, a discreet-looking woman observed the entire interaction with growing fascination. Catherine Wells wore simple but impeccably tailored clothing, and her analytical eyes missed no detail of the unfolding drama. As the billionaire CEO of Wells International, she had chosen to dine alone precisely to study human behavior when people believed they weren't being watched, a habit that had served her well in identifying both talent and incompetence in unexpected places. Andre carefully translated all of the client's dietary restrictions to Morrison, professionally suggesting alternative menu items that would be safe for her condition. His demeanor remained respectful and professional, but something burned in his eyes, a sharp intelligence that contrasted starkly with Morrison's dismissive treatment. Thank her and get back to your tables, Morrison commanded through gritted teeth, clearly irritated by the positive attention Andre was receiving. And next time, don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Frau Weber left a $100 tip specifically for Andre, whispering in German, "You saved my life today. Thank you for your kindness and intelligence." The moment crystallized something important for everyone watching here. Was exceptional talent being systematically suppressed by prejudice and small-minded management? Catherine Wells finished her meal slowly, methodically observing as Morrison continued to humiliate Andre throughout the evening. She watched him assign unnecessary cleaning tasks for already spotless tables, criticize Andre's posture for imaginary infractions, and ensure everyone understood the young man's supposed place in the establishment's hierarchy. What Morrison couldn't realize was that every insult, every unnecessary command, every look of contempt was being carefully recorded in the memory of someone who possessed the power to change lives with a simple phone call. Catherine wasn't merely a casual observer. She was a strategic predator hunting for wasted talent in places where others would never think to look. Asterisk when Andre passed her table for the final time that evening, serving coffee with the same professional elegance despite the constant humiliation. Catherine noticed details that escaped everyone else. She saw the calloused hands that held the serving tray with perfect stability, heard the fluent German that had emerged from nowhere, and recognized the intelligence in his eyes that revealed an education far beyond what his current position suggested. In the days following the incident with Frau Weber, Andre's life at Le Bernardin became a carefully orchestrated nightmare. Morrison had decided that this moment of recognition needed correction through subtle but relentless punishment designed to break his spirit and remind him of his supposed place. "Santos, clean table 3 again," Morrison ordered for the 4th time that morning, knowing perfectly well the table was already spotless. "And when you're finished, go to the stockroom and reorganize all the glassware." Andre obeyed in silence, but Catherine Wells, who had returned to the restaurant 3 times that week, always requesting the same discreet corner table, documented every humiliation with the precision of a corporate investigator. She observed Morrison forcing Andre to redo pointless tasks, deliberately placing him in the worst sections, and making venomous comments whenever he passed nearby. "These kinds of people need to know their place." Morrison commented loudly enough for Andre to overhear while speaking to other waiters. "Give them an inch, and they think they can take a mile." What Morrison didn't understand was that Andre Santos wasn't simply a waiter who happened to speak German. During those sleepless nights at the Brooklyn Public Library, while Morrison slept comfortably in his suburban home, Andre had systematically consumed not only language textbooks, but comprehensive studies on hotel management, international etiquette, protocols, and the psychology of luxury service consumers. He had grown up watching his mother, Dowa Rosa, work as a cleaning lady in corporate offices, returning home each night with stories about how executives treated employees like invisible furniture. "Son," she would say while applying ointment to her work-worn hands, "one day you'll be on the other side of that desk. When that happens, remember what it feels like to be down here." Catherine discovered Andre's true background through investigative methods that few billionaires would consider using. A discreet conversation with the Brooklyn Public Library's staff, revealed that a dedicated young black man had been studying religiously for years, consistently checking out stacks of books on hospitality management, international business protocols, and foreign languages. The restaurant's night cleaning crew, motivated by generous tips, described how Andre arrived 2 hours before each shift to study in the employee break room, using borrowed textbooks and filling notebooks worn thin from constant use. "You know what your problem is, Santos?" Morrison announced on a particularly busy Thursday, positioning himself strategically near the kitchen, where other employees could hear every word. "You think that because you speak a foreign language, you're somehow better than everyone else. But at the end of the day, you're still just another server." Andre stopped polishing the serving tray, his fingers imperceptibly tightening around the metal surface. For a crucial moment, Catherine thought he might finally respond, that he would explode with justified anger. Instead, he took a measured breath and continued his work, seemingly conserving his energy for something more significant. "Yes, sir," Andre replied, his voice controlled, but carrying an undertone of firmness that made Morrison shift uncomfortably. That same evening, Catherine witnessed what would become the final catalyst. A Japanese tourist couple appeared confused by the menu, gesturing nervously while attempting to explain their dietary restrictions in broken English. Their assigned waiter simply shook his head with visible annoyance, clearly unwilling to make any effort to understand their needs. Andre approached discreetly. "Sumimasen, Nihongo ga dekimasu," he said in fluent Japanese, bringing instant relief to the worried couple. "Can I help you with the menu selections?" Morrison materialized like a predatory bird. "Santos, how many times must I repeat myself? Stay in your designated section." "Sir, they have serious shellfish allergies and couldn't communicate their needs." "I don't care," Morrison exploded, his voice carrying across the entire dining room. "You're here to serve food, not perform linguistic exhibitions. If you continue interfering where you don't belong, you can't start looking for another job immediately." The uncomfortable silence that followed was deafening. The Japanese customers appeared mortified by the public confrontation. The German couple from the previous week had witnessed everything, and several other diners watched the scene with expressions of clear disapproval. Andre lowered his eyes, visibly humiliated, but Catherine noticed something crucial. His fists were clenched not in helpless rage, but with the determination of someone making a life-changing decision. "I apologize, sir," Andre said, his voice quiet but unmistakably clear. "It won't happen again." There was something in his tone, an almost imperceptible certainty, that made Catherine smile knowingly. It was the voice of someone who wasn't truly apologizing, but making a promise that Morrison was too arrogant to comprehend. As Andre returned to his section, Catherine made a swift phone call. "James, I need a comprehensive report on the Bernardine property records, licenses, complete financial history, everything. And I want detailed background information on a specific employee." Andre Santos, Catherine Wells' discreet investigation into Andre's background revealed a story that profoundly impressed even her experienced eye for exceptional talent. The young man had lost his father at 16, assuming complete responsibility for supporting his family's survival. He worked construction during the day and at the restaurant during evenings, yet somehow found time to study at the library until dawn. His academic records demonstrated exceptional performance in a technical hotel management program that he had funded through extreme personal sacrifice, working additional weekend shifts as a freelance translator to afford the tuition payments. "Miss Wells," said James, her personal assistant, during their confidential phone briefing, "I discovered something remarkable. Andre Santos isn't only fluent in German and Japanese, he speaks 6 languages fluently and is currently pursuing an executive MBA through distance learning at an accredited international university." Catherine smiled while observing Andre across the restaurant, as Morrison forced him to clean the same table for the 5th consecutive time. "Continue the investigation. I want complete information about his family's financial situation, his future plans, and most importantly, I need a detailed dossier on Morrison's management practices." Meanwhile, Andre was developing his own methodical strategy. Each of Morrison's humiliations was carefully documented in a small notebook he concealed in the staff storage area. He recorded dates, witnesses present, and specific discriminatory comments, not from paranoia, but from systematic methodology learned through his business studies. During brief breaks, Andre began analyzing the restaurant's operational patterns more closely. He documented how Morrison treated customers differently based on their appearance, how he manipulated tip distributions, and how he made prejudiced comments when he believed nobody was listening. Most importantly, he realized he wasn't Morrison's only victim. "Andre," whispered Carmen, a 40-year-old Latina waitress who had endured 8 years at La Bernardine. Isabella was a newly hired Italian waitress with extensive experience in Rome's finest restaurants. Morrison had reassigned her exclusively to cleaning duties. After a customer complimented her authentic Italian pronunciation while she explained the evening's specials, "He's getting progressively worse," commented David, an Asian-American waiter with a prestigious degree from the Culinary Institute. "Last week he removed me from table 15 because a customer supposedly said I looked too Asian for a French restaurant." Andre realized that Morrison had constructed a subtle but systematic segregation system. White employees served the premium tables and received substantial tips, while non-white employees were relegated to inferior sections, assigned degrading tasks, and constantly humiliated before colleagues and customers alike. "Have you ever considered filing a formal discrimination complaint?" Andre asked during their break. "With what resources? What legal representation?" David laughed bitterly. "Morrison has extensive connections throughout the hospitality industry. Filing a complaint means professional blacklisting. No quality restaurant would ever hire us again." Thursday marked the day Catherine decided to implement her plan. She had assembled comprehensive information not only about Andre's qualifications, but about Morrison's entire pattern of discriminatory behavior documented over weeks of careful observation. Wearing a discreet business suit, she approached Andre during his lunch break. "Mr. Santos," she said softly in fluent German, "may we speak privately?" Andre looked up in surprise, immediately recognizing the woman he had observed occupying the corner table so frequently. "You speak German?" He replied in the same language, genuinely intrigued by this unexpected development. "I speak 7 languages." Catherine smiled warmly. "Just like you. My name is Catherine Wells, and I have a business proposal that may interest you considerably." They relocated to a nearby cafe where Catherine addressed the situation directly. "I work in corporate acquisitions and strategic investments. I've been observing Le Bernardin for several weeks, not as a customer, but as a potential investor. What impressed me wasn't the restaurant itself, but you." Andre frowned, struggling to understand her meaning. "I'm not sure I follow. You speak 6 languages fluently, hold a degree in hotel management, are pursuing an executive MBA, and most importantly, you possess something that cannot be taught in any business school: dignity under extreme pressure." Catherine paused for emphasis. "I've also discovered that Morrison is systematically violating federal labor laws regarding racial and ethnic discrimination." Andre's pulse quickened. "Are you an attorney?" "Not directly, but I have access to the country's most accomplished labor law specialists." Catherine slid her business card across the table. "More importantly, I possess something Morrison would never anticipate: limited financial resources and infinite patience for prolonged legal battles." She explained that Wells International frequently acquired mismanaged establishments with unrealized potential. Le Bernardin possessed a prime Manhattan location and established clientele, but toxic leadership was systematically destroying its reputation and market position, exactly the type of strategic investment opportunity that interested her most. "Why are you sharing this information with me?" Andre asked, still processing the implications. "Because I need someone with inside knowledge, someone who understands not only restaurant operations, but the cultural sophistication necessary to transform it into what it should become: a genuinely international culinary destination." Catherine leaned forward intently. "And because individuals like Morrison must face real consequences for their discriminatory practices." Andre felt something powerful ignite within his chest, not merely hope, but the tangible possibility of achieving justice through systematic action. "What would you need me to do?" "Continue working normally. Document everything you've been recording, but now with professional-grade equipment." Catherine handed him a device smaller than a coin. "Discrete digital recorder. Capture all discriminatory interactions and note witnesses carefully. Within 2 weeks, we'll possess sufficient evidence for devastating legal action." She continued with quiet intensity. "And then, Mr. Santos, you will become the general manager of the new Le Bernardin under Wells International ownership, with compensation reflecting your actual qualifications rather than Morrison's prejudicial limitations." Andre examined the tiny recording device. It represented genuine power for the first time in his career. The power to fight back intelligently, using evidence and justice rather than futile anger. Morrison has no concept of what he's about to face. Catherine smiled with cold satisfaction. "Men like him believe they can mistreat talented individuals with complete impunity. It's time to demonstrate how wrong they are." When Andre returned to work that afternoon, Morrison immediately attacked. "Santos, where were you? Your lunch break was 30 minutes, not an entire hour." "I apologize, sir. It won't happen again," Andre replied calmly. discreetly activating the recording device. Asterisk, you're absolutely right, it won't happen again. To ensure you understand, you're staying late tonight to compensate. No overtime pay. Morrison smiled maliciously. People like you need to learn that time equals money, and your time isn't worth much. Andre simply nodded, but his eyes now held new determination. Every cruel word Morrison uttered was being permanently recorded. Every witness was being systematically catalogued. Every humiliation was becoming admissible evidence in a legal case. That would destroy not only Morrison's career, but his entire power structure, built on systematic prejudice and unchecked arrogance. For 2 intensive weeks, Andre meticulously documented every instance of discrimination, every inappropriate comment, every labor law violation Morrison committed. The sophisticated recording device captured everything with crystal clarity: whispered insults, abusive orders, prejudiced remarks made when Morrison believed he was speaking confidentially among like-minded colleagues. Friday evening arrived, the night that would forever change everyone's destiny. Morrison was particularly vindictive because a delegation of Japanese investors had reserved the restaurant's private dining room for an exclusive $15,000 reception, and he wanted to ensure that only appropriate employees served such prestigious guests. "Santos, you're confined to kitchen duty today," Morrison ordered with undisguised satisfaction. "I don't want our distinguished guests feeling uncomfortable with inappropriate service." Andre nodded calmly, activating his recorder one final time. "Of course, sir. May I ask the specific reason for this reassignment?" "Because they're paying $15,000 for this reception, and clients of that caliber expect certain standards," Morrison explained, lowering his voice but not sufficiently. "People like you can handle regular tables, but this requires serious professionalism." What Morrison didn't realize was that Catherine Wells was among those Japanese investors. She had orchestrated the entire reception as the perfect setting for her final revelation, creating the ideal stage for Morrison's public downfall. At 7 o'clock, the private dining room filled with elegantly dressed executives representing major international corporations. Morrison circulated like a proud peacock, greeting guests in his rehearsed English while clearly attempting to impress these influential business leaders with his supposed sophistication and management expertise. Andre remained strategically positioned near the sound system, waiting patiently for Catherine's predetermined signal while Morrison basked in his moment of perceived triumph. Catherine approached Morrison during the reception's peak moment. "Mr. Morrison, I presume I'm Catherine Wells from Wells International. I wanted to personally congratulate you on your service excellence." Morrison practically glowed with self-satisfaction. "Thank you, Ms. Wells. Here at Le Bernardin, we maintain the industry's highest standards. We carefully select our staff to ensure our customers receive only the finest service possible." "Fascinating," Catherine replied with an ice-cold smile. "How exactly do you conduct this careful selection process?" "Well, you must have a discerning eye," Morrison boasted, consuming more wine than professional judgment would recommend. "Some employees simply don't possess the appropriate profile for certain occasions. It's fundamentally about image and maintaining proper standards." Catherine nodded approvingly while discreetly signaling. Andre, I understand completely. Perhaps you could share some specific examples of your management philosophy with our guests? Before Morrison could comprehend her meaning, his own recorded voice suddenly echoed through the restaurant's sound system with crystal clarity, amplified so all 50 distinguished guests could hear every discriminatory word perfectly. People like him should be grateful to have any job at all. Don't go around creating expectations above your station. The dining room fell into absolute silence. Morrison turned pale, slowly recognizing his own voice broadcasting his prejudiced thoughts to the room's most influential business leaders. What? How is this possible? He stammered in growing panic. People like that need to know their place. Continued the recording relentlessly. Give them opportunities, and they think they can do anything. Additional recordings followed in devastating succession to weeks of racist commentary, abusive orders, and systematic humiliation, all captured in high-definition audio and now being broadcast before the restaurant's most important customers and potential business partners. Morrison looked desperately round the room, finding only expressions of horror and disgust on the faces of guests who had come to respect the establishment. Several executives were already standing to leave, clearly offended by what they were hearing. Others whispered indignantly among themselves, their professional reputations now associated with this embarrassing display of workplace discrimination. Mrs. Wells, this is obviously a misunderstanding, Morrison stammered, perspiration breaking out across his forehead as he realized the magnitude of his exposure. Actually, Mr. Morrison, there is no misunderstanding whatsoever, Catherine responded, her voice cutting through the room like a surgical blade. My complete name is Catherine Wells, Chief Executive Officer of Wells International, and I'm pleased to inform you that we have just completed the acquisition of Le Bernardin. The shock on Morrison's face was absolute and devastating. Acquired? That's impossible. I'm the general manager. Nobody informed me of any ownership transition. Because you were merely an employee, Mr. Morrison, an expendable employee who has just been terminated for cause. Catherine gestured toward Andre, who approached carrying an official envelope. Andre Santos is your replacement. Unlike you, he possesses the qualifications this position demands: education, competence, and fundamental human decency, along with his termination notice. The envelope contained a federal lawsuit subpoena. Catherine had initiated not only wrongful termination litigation, but also moral damages claims on behalf of all discriminated employees, creating a legal nightmare that would follow Morrison for years. You cannot do this, Morrison exploded, completely losing his professional composure before the room full of industry leaders. I built my reputation here. I've worked in this industry for 20 years. Worked? Catherine corrected with devastating precision. And regarding your reputation, well, everyone present has now heard exactly what kind of reputation you've actually built. One distinguished guest, clearly a senior industry executive, approached Catherine with obvious concern. Ms. Wells, on behalf of the Manhattan Restaurant Association, I want to apologize for any inadvertent complicity in this situation. This behavior is completely unacceptable. In our professional community, Morrison looked round desperately, but every face reflected only contempt and professional disgust. His network of industry contacts, his supposed friends and allies, were visibly distancing themselves from the toxic association his name now represented. Within minutes, he had lost not only his position, but his entire professional credibility. Built over 2 decades, Andre, Catherine announced, turning toward the new manager. "Would you like to address our distinguished guests?" Andre stood precisely where Morrison had been moments before, but his presence radiated completely different energy. Dignity emanated from his posture. Natural authority resonated in his voice as he addressed the room with quiet confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new Le Bernardin establishment where respect and excellence operate in perfect harmony, where we evaluate people based on character and competence rather than superficial characteristics or prejudicial assumptions." He continued in fluent Japanese, personally greeting the Japanese guests in their native language, then seamlessly transitioning to French, German, and Italian, demonstrating to everyone present not only his remarkable linguistic abilities, but his genuine preparedness to lead a truly international fine dining establishment. The applause was spontaneous and enthusiastic, a stark contrast to the uncomfortable silence that had greeted Morrison's discriminatory comments just minutes earlier. Morrison remained standing in the dining room center, resembling a ghost of his former arrogant self. His condescending confidence had been replaced by complete and irreversible public humiliation. Witnessed by the industry's most influential figures, Catherine approached him for the final time. "Mr. Morrison, security personnel are waiting to escort you from the premises. Your personal belongings will be mailed to your residence." As Morrison was led from the dining room under the collective gaze of everyone who had witnessed his spectacular downfall, Andre remained centered and composed, not triumphant or vengeful, but serene with the satisfaction of justice properly served. He had achieved victory not through anger or revenge, but through meticulous preparation, maintained dignity, and systematic documentation of injustice. The transformation was complete and profound. The man who had endured years of humiliation based on others' prejudices now occupied exactly the position his demonstrated competence had always deserved. While Morrison discovered that arrogance and racism carried devastating consequences in the professional world, 6 months later, Le Bernardin had become Manhattan's most respected restaurant, celebrated not only for culinary excellence, but for the revolutionary culture of inclusion that Andre had systematically implemented. Gastronomy Today magazine featured a cover story titled "The Rebirth of Le Bernardin," how a former waiter transformed prejudice into prosperity. Andre, now wearing impeccably tailored suits that he had selected and purchased himself, moved through the main dining room observing his diverse staff serve customers, representing dozens of different nationalities with professional excellence and cultural sensitivity. Carmen had been promoted to dining room supervisor, utilizing her natural leadership abilities that Morrison had deliberately suppressed. Isabella now managed an innovative Italian wine program, sharing her expertise with customers who appreciated authentic cultural knowledge. David was directing an ambitious Asian culinary exchange, program that brought international recognition to the establishment. Mr. Santos, the Macta D approached respectfully. The French delegation has arrived for the meeting regarding our Paris expansion project. Andre nodded, adjusting his shirt cuffs with quiet satisfaction. His partnership with Catherine Wells had resulted not only in the restaurant's transformation, but in an expanding chain of establishments that prioritized both excellence and authentic cultural diversity throughout their operations. Meanwhile, Morrison was discovering that arrogance and systematic prejudice create lasting professional consequences. No quality restaurant in New York would consider hiring him. After video footage of his public humiliation became viral across social media platforms, forever associating his name with discrimination and managerial incompetence. "Please, I'm begging you," Morrison pleaded during his 10th unsuccessful phone call that day. "I understand I have sufficient experience for even an assistant manager position. I'm willing to accept half the standard salary to prove my value." The response remained consistently negative. "I'm sorry, but we don't have any available positions for someone with your documented history." Back at La Bernardine, Andre received a phone call that would elevate his career to an entirely new level. "Mr. Santos, this is Robert Chen from the United Nations Hospitality Committee. We would like to invite you to coordinate the official dinner for our next General Assembly. We need someone who truly understands international cultural diplomacy," Catherine Wells observed from her usual table. Now, as an official business partner in the expanding enterprise, she watched Andre simultaneously coordinate conversations in 3 different languages to resolve a complex logistical challenge involving dietary restrictions from multiple cultural backgrounds. "Did you anticipate it would develop like this?" she asked her assistant. "From the very first day," he replied thoughtfully. "But even I couldn't have imagined he would transform not just a single restaurant, but influence an entire industry's approach to diversity and cultural competence." Other establishments throughout the city were implementing Le Bernardin's model of authentic cultural diversity, recognizing that genuine inclusion created both moral and financial advantages in an increasingly global marketplace. At day's end, Andre discovered a letter on his executive desk. It was from Frau Weber, the German lady whose moment of medical crisis had triggered this entire transformation. "My dear Andre," the letter began in elegant German script. "I read in the international newspapers about your incredible journey from waiter to restaurant executive. I want you to know that on that frightening day, you didn't merely help me communicate my allergy, you demonstrated that genuine kindness and intelligence still exist in our world. Your mother must feel tremendous pride in your achievements." Andre smiled, remembering Dowa Rose's prophetic words. "One day you'll be on the other side of that desk." She had been absolutely correct. But there was something even more satisfying than simply reaching the other side. He had completely rebuilt the entire system to ensure others wouldn't face the discrimination he had endured. Morrison, meanwhile, had learned through devastating personal experience that discrimination is not only morally reprehensible, but professionally suicidal in the modern business environment. His desperate LinkedIn posts attempting to rehabilitate his destroyed reputation received only comments referencing the viral video that had exposed his true character. To the entire hospitality industry, the transformation was complete and permanent. Andre had not merely survived systematic humiliation. He had strategically converted every insult into motivation for building something his former oppressors could never have imagined possible. He had proven definitively that genuine excellence recognizes no boundaries of color, origin, or background beyond those artificially imposed by small-minded individuals. Morrison had attempted to destroy Andre's spirit and career, but succeeded only in destroying himself through his own documented prejudice. Andre learned that authentic revenge isn't about repaying damage suffered. It's about achieving success so extraordinary that former enemies can only watch in amazement, transforming every barrier encountered into a launching platform for unprecedented achievement. This story proves that sometimes life's greatest injustices become the most powerful catalysts for extraordinary success. When preparation meets opportunity, and when dignity confronts prejudice with systematic intelligence, the results can transform not just individual lives, but entire industries. The question isn't whether justice exists, it's whether we're prepared to work systematically toward it, regardless of how long the journey requires. ****.